I'd like to show you another sparkling win by Alexei Shirov. A few days ago, I showed you on the channel a really beautiful win by him in the FIDE online Olympiad, where he sacrificed his queen. And that is so typical of his style. He plays with such creativity and artistry and daring. And I've had quite a few requests to look at more games from Alexei, and I'm very pleased to do that. And when I was looking through his games, right on cue, in another round of the FIDE Online Olympiad, played just yesterday, he produced another beautiful win, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So in this game, it's Johannes Mabusela from South Africa playing against Alexei Shirov. And it's a Slav, and that's the same opening that we had the queen sack in a few days ago. But in this game, it's a little bit different. Mabusela goes for the exchange on d5. So now we transpose back into basically the exchange variation of the queen's gambit declined. So with this fixed pawn structure. And here, well, bishop g5 is kind of normal, but queen c2 played to prevent the bishop coming to f5. Reasonable. And here, well, for example, not too long ago, game between Kramnik and Giri, played online, went bishop e7. That would be very typical of Giri, just absolutely orthodox. You could also play g6 with the idea bishop f5. Shirov has actually played in that way before. But typical of Alexei, he likes to go his own way. And here he played knight a6. So this kind of thing has been seen before. I've played like this in similar positions in the queen's gambit. You want to put your knight on b4 and start to hassle the queen and maybe aim for a bishop f5. A very crude and direct attack, but why not? And if white wants to play very securely, you can just stop that with a3, but then the knight will come to c7 and can reroute at some point to e6, or maybe even later on to d6, but you claim that maybe a3 isn't such a useful move. So that anyway, that's a safe way of playing for white. But instead, here Mabusela played bishop g5, the normal move, you could say, and it's certainly not a bad move. h6 from Shirov. Let's ask the bishop what it wants to do. If it's going to exchange on f6, then we're very happy. You've gained the two bishops. But Mabusela sticks to his guns and plays bishop h4. And now things start to kick off. Well, if you play knight a6, then of course you have to follow through with your plan. So knight b4. And, well, obviously the queen has a choice now, but it's actually quite a tricky choice. And this is typical of Shirov's games, that somehow he asks his opponent difficult questions. So maybe you'd like to have a think. Where would you put this queen? Is it here, here? I mean, there's a lot of choice here, and it's very easy to get it wrong. So previously, for example, queen d2 has been played, but that led to a very swift victory. Queen d2 looks very plausible, but suddenly it's a really tricky situation. This diagonal can be rather weak, considering that this bishop has gone right round the other side. But Mabusela plays queen b1, which the point of this is to keep control over this diagonal, preventing that bishop coming to f5, and that looks like a very decent response. Shirov played g6. So he definitely wants to get in bishop f5, and then there'll be a huge check on c2. And now if white wants to sort of keep the lid on things, then you can exchange here and bring the queen back, and that eliminates any possibility of a knight e4. But Mabusela played queen d1, which obviously keeps more tension when there are more pieces on the board. So here things kicked off. First of all, g5 puts the bishop back, and that might well enable the knight to hop into e4. But first of all, bishop f5 threatens a huge check on c2, therefore rook c1. So white still has things under control. Queen a5, more pressure on this diagonal, and also on the pawn here. So there's actually a threat to take on a2. So for example, if e3, then knight takes a2, exploiting the pin. Or indeed a3, you can still play knight a2, attacking the rook and the knight, of course. Mabusela played bishop e5. And that's the you could say the principal move, because it looks at the knight, looks through to the rook, and exchanging off that knight, if the knight is protected, could be useful. Could eliminate a lot of the danger. Now here, if black wants to play a normal move, then of course bishop e7 is possible. And then the game might go like this: queen d2, knight e4. I mean, this leads to a pretty crazy position, but this is possible. Give up the rook, you take on f3, castles queenside, and obviously there's some pressure here. White's king still has to get out of the middle. I mean, black has definite compensation there. That's certainly, I think, a very reasonable way for black to play. And you're only the exchange down. So, you know, you don't burn your boats totally. But here, Shirov played instead knight e4. So absolutely going for it. Logical, of course, because you put more pressure on the knight and start to work on this diagonal. And there's already a lot of pressure there. But it gives away a whole rook. Knight takes a2 from Shirov. Attacking the rook, attacking the knight. There's pressure here. How is that king going to get to safety? What is that bishop doing way across on the other side of the board? Doesn't seem to be able to connect at all. And white is under massive pressure now. And don't forget, this bishop could also join the fray as well to increase the pressure on this diagonal. So Mabusela played knight d2. You have a feeling at the moment that he is just walking on a tightrope here, because with every move he could get it wrong. So can he make it to the end of the tightrope without plunging into the gorge below? Knight takes c3, pawn takes. And here, I think a reasonable way for Shirov to play would be knight takes c3. And if the queen goes to b3, then knight e4, there's more pressure there. If rook a1, the queen drops back. Now, at this moment, black is still a rook down, but there is pretty decent compensation here. The rook attacks here. I mean, it might be, you might just be able to throw that a-pawn down the board. Certainly, it's going to take a long time before the king reaches safety. There's also pressure here on this diagonal. Watch out for that. Decent compensation. Remember, this is a rapid play game, so we're not expecting best play from either side, actually. Instead of knight c3, Shirov plays bishop a3. Incredible stuff. And at this moment, white's balancing act, I'm afraid, takes a turn for the worse. Here, rook a1 is really the only good move. And after this, well, white still has to find a couple of very good moves. I mean, this looks absolutely terrifying with potential threats here and on the rook, of course. But if white finds e4, then he's actually doing okay. And the idea is this: pawn takes, and then you play d5 to connect the bishop back to the queen side. And white, with best play, should be doing all right. Even that is still not absolutely certain. You've got to negotiate castle's queen side. But rook a1 was the move. Anyway, that's irrelevant. White played rook c2, which feels like a more secure move because you keep some control here. But actually, instead of bishop takes rook, knight takes is a much stronger move. And here, Shirov takes control. Now he's in the driving seat. If that queen moves here, then of course the rook can actually be taken. So rook takes knight, queen takes. Now what's the score? The score is white is still a piece up, but bishop c2 is threatened, trapping the queen. Pretty nasty. So Mabusela played queen b3. Queen takes, knight takes, and now still white is a piece up. That's the extra piece there across the other side of the board. Bishop c2 from Shirov. So it's like this bishop pair against the world at the moment. He does have quite a few pawns for the piece. He has 2 pawns for the piece, and let's just watch that 8 pawn. And here Mabusela cracked completely. He had to play knight d2 to guard the king. Then after bishop b4, you can see that a pawn is ready to charge down the board, and this pin is highly unpleasant. And it's not completely over, but black certainly has very good chances there in spite of being a piece down. But after bishop c2, Mabusela cracked, played knight c5, allowing bishop b4 checkmate. Now, that is quite incredible. Checkmating 21 moves. Some players just have the ability to produce this kind of game, and Alexei Shirov is one of those players. I'll be showing you a few more games from Shirov over the next few weeks. I'll have to see how it fits in with what else is going on. Maybe I'll be reporting from the online Olympiad as well. We'll have to see what's going on. But he really is a unique player. Although he slipped in the world rankings over the past few years, remember at his best, he was actually a contender for the world title, if you remember, at the end of the 90s when he played a match against Vladimir Kramnik, and many feel that he should have had a shot at the world title against Garry Kasparov. But anyway, it's kind of ancient history. What I'd like to concentrate on is his remarkable play, and I hope that you enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And thank you to everyone who has supported the channel over the past few weeks. There's 2 of us in this enterprise. There's me and my tech partner as well. So we really do appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.